In this demonstration, we're going to test the functionality of a cloud-based OpenVPN appliance that was deployed in a previous demo. Here in my web browser on premises, I've connected to the URL for OpenVPN. This is for the virtual machine running in the Amazon Web Services cloud. So on this page, I'm given the option to present a username, so I'll put in OpenVPN in this case. I'll pop in the password for that account. And in the drop-down menu below, it's set to connect. I'll leave that and I'll click Go. And from here, I have the option to click a link to download the OpenVPN Connect client. It's also going to download a profile with everything filled in for me to make the actual connection. So it's now in the midst of downloading. Once that's done, I'll click on it to launch the installer. Then I'll click Run. And after a few seconds, it will have configured the OpenVPN client. It pops up and asks if I want to trust the profile where it already has everything filled in for me to make the connection. I'll click Yes. And it now says Assigning IP address. And then on the right, I have my standard Windows network message when I connect to a new network for the first time about being discoverable. I'll choose No. I can also see the OpenVPN Connect message listed on the right as well. If I flip over to my Windows desktop, I can see I've got an OpenVPN Connect client icon here as well that I can click on to establish a connection. I've also got a tray icon listed down here in the system tray towards the bottom right in my taskbar. Here in the AWS, I can see the OpenVPN virtual machine running and the VPC network and subnet ID. Now I want that because I'm going to launch a new virtual machine in that same network location. So I'm going to choose Select next to Amazon Linux, and I'll use Next on the general purpose type. And then in step 3, the network section, I want to make sure that I deploy this into the same subnet with the VPN virtual machine. And I want to change the public IP, which is currently set to enabled, to disabled, so that I can connect through the VPN and then have access to the private network. So I'll click Next down here a couple of times to accept a bunch of defaults. I will add a tag here in step 5 called Name with the value of Private Linux. And then I'll click Next in the bottom right. We can see here it's got a port 22 exception in the firewall, so I can SSH into the virtual machine. So I'll click Review and Launch, then Launch. And I'll use the existing Linux key pair. I'll turn on the check mark to acknowledge I've got the private key, and I'll click Launch Instances. Then I'm going to go ahead and click the link with the ID of that instance so I can view it. That's going to take me to my instance view, but it's filtered for that one, so I'll just remove the filter up above by clicking the X. Now I can see all of my virtual machines. We can see our OpenVPN virtual machine, which was deployed previously, which is running, as well as our private Linux virtual machine. I'm going to take note of the private IP for that down in the bottom right and copy it because I'm ultimately going to be connecting to that. So here in Windows, I'm going to go start the PuTTY client and I'm going to put in my private Linux IP address. I'm going to call this AWS Private Linux. And down under Connection SSH Auth on the left, I'll browse for my Linux private key. And then I'm going to go up on the left under Window Appearance and click the Change button to increase the font so it's more legible, maybe 20 point. I'll click OK and Open to open that connection. Now, the first time you connect to an SSH server, it asks if you want to trust its unique fingerprint. And if you've never connected before, you'll have nothing to compare it against. So this could be communicated in a variety of ways, and you could verify that the unique code indeed matches the server. Now, the admin could give this to you, and it assures you you're connecting to the server you think you are. So I'm going to go ahead and click Yes. And then I'm going to log in as a user called EC2-user. That's the default for this Amazon Web Services virtual machine. And I'll put in the passphrase for the key. Now, if I type sudo ifconfig, I can see that I've got my IP address, the private IP address that I've connected to because I've already connected to the VPN. Now, if I go down to the system tray icon for OpenVPN and right-click on it and choose Disconnect, then I no longer have a VPN connection. So let's go ahead once more and try to connect to that private Linux virtual machine. What should happen is, and there it is, we get a network error that says the connection timed out because we don't have the VPN tunnel established.